Africa, closing the gender gap. Salima Radia Mukansanga is the first female to officiate an AFCON match. She is a professional FIFA and CAF referee from Rwanda. Dr. Diane Karusisi is the CEO of the Bank of Kigali Group. Under her leadership, the largest commercial bank in Rwanda has gone through an extensive digital transformation journey. Claire Akamanzi, CEO, Rwanda Development Board, an international trade and investment lawyer. She has served the government of Rwanda in several senior positions for the last 15 years.
Well, this is a panel that will focus on how Rwanda has achieved several notable milestones in bridging the gender gap and showing the way for female participation and representation in government, business and the creative economy, including entrepreneurship. As noted, this particular panel will highlight and profile some of Rwanda's most successful professionals, as well as those who are young women in the making, looking to make their mark as top first achievers on the continent. I must say, good to have you all with us, and thank you so much for joining us. Salima, Diane and Claire, really delighted to engage in conversation with you today. And I guess for us to really fully understand and comprehend the context of this particular conversation, it is not only to highlight some of the successes that have been made, your personal experiences, but also understand some of the challenges and of course opportunities that business together with government has created in order to ensure that gender parity is something that is attained in a country like Rwanda. But Diane, I'd like to come to you first. As someone who is a statistician, someone who crunches numbers, and your capacity as well as the CEO of the Bank of Kigali, I'm keen perhaps just to get your perspective and for us to reflect on the history that has influenced the current narrative in terms of women being the large majority in the population, largely as those who have survived the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis, and of course unfortunately did lead to a greater population in existence of female leaders, and how that perhaps has set the tone for more females to actively participate in the economy. Diane?
Thank you. Thank you for having me in this panel. For us, it's a very important week as we reflect on the past and all the progress we've made in terms of gender equality. As you said, I think what we've done is very enshrined in the history of this country, the genocide against the Tutsi, and a new transformational leadership right after the genocide. And I think one of the first things we did was to create a foundation in the constitution that really sets in stone principles of gender equality, but also of women's rights, because this is very important. We are talking about women's rights here, like human rights. And after that, I think we've seen a number of policies across the board in all sectors, public sector, education, health, etc., really, pushing all strategies and objectives to make sure that the woman has the right place in the society, but also contributes equally to the development of the country. I think that's really something that is very inspiring for us as women now in leadership, learning from this past experience and also being inspired by a very strong leadership that has been very deliberate and intentional about gender equality.
Very important that we do understand that, because it really does speak to, again, a perspective on history and, of course, as you say, accurate and very important leadership that has come to the fore. And perhaps to stay with you there, Diane, as you have painted a picture and added some color into this image, I'm keen to understand what particular influences for you as a young girl in this era of Rwanda, post-1994, as to what some of the nuances and influences were for you as an individual that might have piqued your interest, motivated you to perhaps dream bigger and perhaps even become a visionary at a young age, depicting an ideal of what your future would look like in Rwanda.
Thank you. I think right from my childhood, I grew up in a family where the boy and the girl had same place, same seat on the table, and could have dreams. I think my dreams and my brother's dreams were valid, and I think this has set a precedent for me not to think that I would be constrained in terms of what I would want to do and where I would want to be in life. So I think that's quite important. And then with that background, living in a country where from the top executive of this country, all the way to leaders in local government, when you hear the same language saying that women and men both have to participate equally and contribute to the development of the country, I think this is inspiring. So it's never been really for me, I've never seen a constraint. Whatever I wanted to, set my time to do, I think I was always given an opportunity to do what I thought I could do and to contribute the best way I could. And I see this, when I look at these phenomenal women on the panel, looking at Claire, at Salma, I think it's been really a beautiful journey, seeing what women can do and how they come to be appreciated by the community, and how we believe will inspire the region and probably the world as well.
Very true. And you're quite right. Very inspiring in terms of your individual stories and the journeys that you've each walked. And Claire, perhaps I can come to you here as in your capacity currently as the CEO of the Rwanda Development Board. Well aware of the fact that you've worked in various capacities, primarily within the public sector and of course government, which really does speak to, I guess, the opportunity and awakening for more women to have a voice within political seats, which we are quite aware is not necessarily the norm if one does have a scan, a look the African continent. I'm keen for you perhaps to engage us and indulge us in some of your personal experiences and insight that has influenced your understanding and the role that women continue to play in public policy and in government, particularly within Rwanda.
Thank you very much, Guguletu, and happy Women's Week to everybody on the panel, including Diane and Salma. So first of all, Guguletu, I think that a Rwandan woman and a Rwandan girl today is truly an empowered woman. In many ways, Rwandan women and Rwandan girls today know that there's no inhibition when it comes to their dreams. And in many ways, a Rwandan woman today knows that if she really wanted to attain something, she has the environment that will support her to do that. Because the policies, the legal environment, the political environment, the support system that has been built over time in Rwanda is such that every girl and every woman today knows and expects that when she wants to achieve something, that it's possible for her. But it hasn't always been like that. This is fruits of a lot of work and policies that were put in place for Rwandans to feel like this and for women to feel like this today. I think the most important, and I think Diane did touch on that, is a political commitment. If you have political commitment that walks the talk, that makes sure that every time there's an appointment of a cabinet or an appointment of leaders in institutions, that there is a woman or there are women on that list, somebody who deliberately asks for that and makes sure that happens, like our president does and many other leaders in the country do. That alone, I think, is a very big factor that has really supported women to reach the point where they are today, where they really feel that they have the environment that supports them to grow. So political commitment is very important, but it's not just a political commitment. If you're a leader in an organization, a CEO of a bank, a CEO of a UN organization, a CEO of any organization, I think understanding and knowing that the role that you play as a leader in that organization in making sure that you're actually looking out for women and giving women opportunities is crucial, and we all must take that as a responsibility going forward. And for me, as a woman who has had the opportunity to be part of the leadership programs in Rwanda, I think it's very important for everyone to take that responsibility really seriously and make sure that as you take on your own responsibilities as a leader, you actually are really bringing up young leaders and opening doors and looking out for women and making sure that they're taking their rightful places. And secondly, when we take those opportunities as women, making sure that we do our very best, because our success really motivates the next generation of women, which we should not take for granted. And so taking that seat, doing the best in that seat, and really doing your best to excel in it, because when you do that, then you're really validating that women can actually do this work and women can actually excel, and more women can come along the way to do that. Now, something else also that is really important that we've seen in Rwanda, when the constitution was put in place that Diane talked about, mandating that 30% of leadership positions should be filled by women, it wasn't easy to get women at the time. Our political leaders tell us how they really had to go looking around, encouraging, mobilizing women to come and take up 30% of the positions that they did. But soon today, 61% of parliament is women, 55% of cabinet is women, 42% of businesses registered in the organization that I lead, RDB, is led by women. So over time, there have been enough role models to encourage other women that it can happen. So making sure that we have platforms where role models can be seen, can talk, can share their experiences, and young girls can actually really see that if so-and-so can become a referee, a FIFA referee like Salma, maybe I too can become one. If another one can become a pilot, maybe I too can become a pilot. If Diane is a CEO of the biggest bank in Rwanda and she's a woman, I can become the CEO of the biggest bank or the biggest telecoms or the biggest mining company. And so role models, I think, is very important. And I really like the fact that in my country, a lot of platforms and opportunities are given for women to really share their stories so that other women can see role models and grow for them. So I think that's really important as well.
Definitely quite important. Thank you so much for that. And really does reflect on the ongoing encouragement and motivation that we need to ensure does participate and continue to take place within our communities to mobilize women, to take opportunity to have occupy their space at the right seats. And speaking of women, as you said, who are pilots and trailblazers in their new industries and spheres of work. Salma, I must say I am really excited to be speaking to you today because you've made history just this year by being the first female referee at the African Cup of Nations, particularly when it came to a match between Guinea and Zimbabwe. There's a beautiful image I saw of you online blocking two male players from having a clash on the field. And I know there won't be any clashes here today, but I was hoping you might have your whistle, right? Just to call us out perhaps and mobilize and encourage us further. But I guess anyone who is anyone must be seated here and thinking that's quite a phenomenal feat, especially on the back of knowing the background of our continent, understanding our culture where patriarchy continues to exist, and of course not having enough female representation in many industries like football, which still happen to be dominated by men. You've shared your motivation and encouragement the world over, but perhaps you can enlighten us once again on what the motivating factors were for you personally to actually break barriers and occupy your space even on football fields.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be invited in this summit, and I'm really happy to share my experience with my colleagues, with young girls outside in Africa, inside Africa. I'm really happy. The road was not too clear because this is a field dominating by men. So it's up to we women as leaders, let me say, to open the road to the rest of the young girls to follow the road. It was not easy because the mentor we had, they are men. So it means we are still going behind men to seek for help because this is the field they have been driving for so long. We have been working hard to imitate where men they are. So it's not easy to train like men and to have the strength like for the men to be in the game and to officiate the game from the first minute to the end. It needs a lot. It needs to give a lot of what you have. It's a big sacrifice. We made sacrifice from our training. We're training double to men so that it can be reached on the same piece of the game. And we had some FAs, let me call it FA in Africa. Sometimes they're not supporting women because they don't have the belief that women, they can reach to any stage. They think it's only women's football. They don't think about men's football. So referees all around the world, especially in Africa, they have been working hard to the level they extend the women's football. So it means they really need the support and to give more games in men so that they're going to have a big experience to apt to the games of the men. And something else, I'm glad to be born in Rwanda, a country which gives me a lot of opportunity. I take those opportunities from those two mothers I have in front of me. Their words, their encouragement, it take me up to here. And then I use this to talk to the young ladies from my country. Please, this is the way. Let's follow this way. Let's take those opportunities to go on and to reach our dreams. The dreams is big and we can't reach the dreams without have a big sacrifices to make. So we have to make sacrifices and we have power. The power comes from these women's empowerment and it comes from people who are watching our footsteps that we have a dream and we can reach our dream. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Salima, and some important aspects that you highlight there, which do speak to skills development, paying it forward, and of course, even the mentorship and support that you've received from two of our other panelists, being Diane as well as Claire. And Claire, perhaps I'd like to use this opportunity to come back to you. You mentioned paying it forward and of course, adequate skills development. And I'm keen to understand, perhaps if you can share some insight and some learnings that you've gathered, either within your experience or from what you've witnessed, as to how this continues to, it needs to be reworked, I guess, or tweaked to make sure that there's a concerted effort to allow girl children on the continent and women across the continent to continue to advance. And I say this particularly because if we take a look at the impact of the pandemic, if we take a look at how wellness, mental wellness, and allowing individuals to show up as their full selves, that's come through to the fore. So in other words, Claire the mother, Claire the CEO, Claire the sister, Claire the aunt can exist in full capacity, but of course still be allowed and be groomed and trained in order to excel at her best capacity. Any learnings that you can share with us there, Claire? What are your thoughts?
So thank you, Guguletu. When it comes to skills, I think what has been important is, first of all, to open up opportunities for girls to be able to access education. In Rwanda, we have a universal access program where the first 12 years of education are free of charge. And so any girl has the same access as any boy to be able to go to school. And that really ensured that a big number of girls went to school. So that's one, being able to really open up facilities, education, and also making them affordable, important. But also continuous skills improvement. At the Rwanda Development Board, we have what we call the Chief Skills Office, whose job is really to make sure that we're looking out for people that need to increase their skills and be able to become competitive, or even be able to become employable, as we call it. And so we do training, short-term training, whether it's English proficiency or customer care or marketing